Pratik, why do so many people achieve what they thought would finally make them fulfill and still feel anxious, empty, or restless afterward?
Because we've been conditioned to chase the fulfillment externally. But there is no definition of that. So some people would chase money, some people would chase status, some people would chase luxury, and they still feel it is not correct. It doesn't give them the fulfillment. It's only short term pleasure, and then you want something more. And that's because we've learned to operate from scarcity. It's part of our evolutionary process. It's nothing wrong with it. But when we were moving in tribes and there was no society place, like we were just, transformed from animal to human when we developed the cognitive ability. Safety and survival were our key instinct, and we were, you know, traveling, migrating to different parts of the earth. And there was a alpha male, a leader who would provide the safety, and the other people who some of them would support him, and some of them would, be there as a people, general people. So the food was always the problem. So they wanted to accumulate food and save the food so then they can survive. So that understanding went in the subconscious mind over generations, and over generations. Now subconscious mind does not have time and space. And conscious mind, whatever you do, it remains there. It doesn't change our action. Our action comes from subconscious mind. So when you set a target, you achieve that, and then as soon as you get it, you want something more, because the status is one of the things we see. How what will people say is the biggest fear people have, fear of being judged. Worse than, in my experience, worse than fear of death, people have fear of what will people say. So when we look back to the history, the people who used to provide the safety and security, and the people who were supporting the king, we say it, or leader, they received more respect from other people. So, in order to receive that respect, you need to look settled. You need to look, you are at a much better stage in terms of your finances and assets and everything. And that's what has been coming through generations. But the ultimate is that we learn to operate from scarcity. So, we are chasing fulfillment, but we've been incorrectly conditioned to look for the fulfillment externally. And that is why no target can make you feel, now this is it and I can retire.
Okay, okay. So I can definitely see it from the point of view from a evolutionary standpoint. That of course, when we were tribes, resources were our basic needs, like Maslow's pyramid of what's it called, the priorities, if you want to call it that way.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
food and, in a shelter, and feeling the safety. And by the way, and that's how we operate. It's like almost probably every living thing, species, operates under that safety
yes,
and food, right? So we since we are social creatures, we add the sense of belonging. Therefore, that's why you add that fear of being judged is above fear of death or other fears, because I guess from an evolutionary standpoint, that meant that if you were judged, you were being kicked out of the tribe,
yeah,
you're dead, pretty
yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so understand how we still, even though we think we are smart enough, we're still operate from a primal brain.
yes,
Having said that, I just want to bring more clarity to people, because this is something that for I'm I'm 34 now, and for 31, 32 years of my life, I thought that fulfillment, purpose, meaning was all bullshit, because I never felt that. I never had like a life direction, and then things happen in my life where things turn around, and I sort of found my way, my purpose, my meaning, and it's deeply fulfilling. But if you were going to describe either a feeling or actions for people to understand what exactly fulfillment feels like, because if people are looking to fulfillment now, Sure, we can go that a lot of people are aiming to have the bigger house or the expensive watch or taking other trips and having the status, because once again, people will admire you, people will respect you, and they won't judge you, but you still feel empty for a number of reasons. What exactly, how does fulfillment look like? And if people are not fulfilled, what they should look for?
Okay. Before I get to fulfillment, I just would like to clarify a couple of things. I'll share my own journey. When I was studying in school, I had a dream that I have a family, wife and kids and a nice job and all my own business, and everything works fine, right? Um, but when I actually got married, I had not found a job who would pay me enough to live the life the way I wanted. So I kept changing the jobs. But then I also had started having some relationship problems. By the time I got to a stage where I had a really good job, but I wasn't satisfied with everything I had because it still felt there is something more is possible. There is something more is possible. That's what was coming from within me. So but because I was so much low in my relationships, um, I'm like, what's the point? Even if I made 10 million pounds, what's the point? Because I'm not going to be happy, right? So I wasn't really pushing much myself for it. So in 2017, I was diagnosed with tuberculosis. And in that 3 months when I was in bed, I couldn't stand up, I couldn't walk or anything. I had a thought like, if I were to pass away right now, how many people's life will be affected and for how long? So, apart from my parents and my children, I think most people's life would be fine within a month, and the remaining like four key people would also accept, 6 months or a year or two, and they'll be fine. So, what are the things I'm not being able to do because I think of others, not just parents, but as a society, the fear of what will people say? And in that moment, my fear disappeared. I'm like, I'm not dying to convince people what I want to do. I'm going to do what I want. So that illness, that disease became blessings in disguise for me. So I did business. I eventually got divorced and, I'm now in a relationship. But what I really realized is fulfillment isn't something came from money or from people. Fulfillment, what it feels like is, I'll give a really simple example because this is experience, right? I mean, no matter how many words I'm going to use, it'll still be like knowledge to the ones who've not experienced it. Like balancing a bicycle. How does it feel when you first learn to balance the bicycle? You can't put words to it, right? But
Yeah.
it's simple. So let's say you're working day and night and you've always got worry about the future. When I say worry, it's like you want to control that this is what's going to happen in 1 year time, 2 year time, 5 year times, right? And you like playing piano, so once a week or twice a week you sit down in your room on your own, play the piano for an hour, and that hour you really enjoy it, right? Because you play the piano, you're not expecting anything in return, because for this, the fact that you're engaged in that activity of playing piano doesn't matter if you're playing in tune or out of tune or whatever that is. It is just yourself with the switches. You're pressing the switch, there is a tune comes out and you feel the joy. How about if the moment you wake up in the morning till the point you go to bed, every single thing you engage yourself in, it's like playing that piano. That is fulfillment
Hmm.
because you want nothing in return. You've surrendered yourself to the universe to unfold the experiences. See, there is nothing to achieve. There is no happiness, there is no sadness. We have labeled them as part of conditioning. When you see yourself, not conditioned self, right? The real you know that, okay, if somebody was angry at me or somebody insulted me, who defines this is insult? We learned that if somebody said down to you, then it's insulting and you need to feel sad about it because you saw other people feeling sad or feeling angry. So that is the learned reaction. So feeling sad is learned expression. Feeling happy, like if you make money or if you go out and you have to feel, you learn to feel happy. But happiness and sadness are like two sides of the coin. They are absence of one the other, right? But when you see yourself from the observer, the real you, which is a one layer below the conditioning, everything is just an experience. You won't label it good or bad. So if you go out and it's raining, yes, it's raining and I have experience of getting wet. If you go out and it's hot and you feel the burn, it's an experience. Why do I have a need to label that this is good experience or bad experience? Why cannot it just be experience?
Hmm.
And that can only come from the wholeness, because when you see yourself that this is your true self, and if you ask that part, when you go in a relaxed state and ask that part, and I do this exercise, when you there is a in the book there is exercise how you find this part, which I call observer. um, any money will not affect it, and any painful event will not affect it. It's the true wholeness, true completeness. And if you ask that part, what do you want, and it would say nothing. It is all it can be, right? So if you give something, it's not affected. If you receive something, it's not affected. It's like ocean. If somebody takes away 100,000 liters water away from the ocean, do you think that will be affected? No. If somebody comes and gives 100,000 liter water in the ocean, do you think it's be happy? No. It's constant. And that feeling, I call it bliss. So no external event can affect your state of bliss. So everything you do from morning to night, it's like playing that piano. It just gives you joy because you want nothing in return. And when you want nothing in return, your nervous system is relaxed and you are actually in open state to receive. And I tell you this from my own experience, the significant events which my conditioned self will consider as the good news of life, I was not chasing. They just happened unexpectedly. The best job I had, the best car I got, you know, my daughters, like, do you really plan how your child is going to be? No. I mean, I couldn't even choose my parents. But anything that happened which was amazing, it's not because you wanted or you worked for it. They all happen unexpectedly. And how the law of attraction demonstrates that is because you were not attached to it, you were not desperate to it. That's how you received it. How I see it is you were open to receive it. You had no resistance about it, and that's why you received it. It's like you have a fist. If you make a fist, you can't hold anything. It's tight. But if you open your arms, your hand, then only you can receive it. And if I go a bit deeper into this subject, when you operate from wholeness, you have no resistance over any events that happen externally, because that's all going to be adding more joy to your default state of bliss, which means your nervous system learns to be open. There is no tension. You take nice slow deep breaths automatically, and you're in an open state. So when I wrote this book, it was not something I wanted to write, is I couldn't stop myself from writing. I've been talking to people about this method and what I've learned. Do I have any goals? No. Do I sell X million copies? No. I want I'm enjoying the process of talking to you. I'm enjoying the process of going out and talking about it. That gives me so much joy. And when we talk about money, I do my work. I'm a consultant. I do business consulting, right? And every time I know I have to pay a bill, somehow from somewhere, someone will come and ask for advice and they pay me the money and I can just pay. So money just comes and goes. I don't need to worry about saving $10 million, right? Because everything is taken care of. I am whole. I am complete. That is the feeling of fulfillment. So if you go out and want to buy something, you don't look at the price, because if you look at the price, it's a scarcity mindset. But if you just pay without negotiating, without waiting for the sale, the sale time, that is wholeness. If somebody has, if you had $10 million, you're not going to wait for a sale. You're just going to go and buy whenever you want it. That's the difference. So by your actions, your every single cell, you are training to feel that wholeness. And that's how, from a state which is much behind the subconscious mind, pushes the energy to the physical cells through the emotions and our particles into this body, that sets your nervous system to receiving mode. And that's when you start receiving. But again, when you receive it, you're not really, wowed by it, because it's like, it's okay, because I was already whole. I am the ocean. And if I get 10 million liter of more water, so what? I'm just gonna turn into clouds and send it back to the land and pour it with the rain, and then through the rivers it's gonna come back to me. That's what it is.
Hmm. Yeah. So for everything that you share, and I appreciate your very detailed answer. Said a lot of fulfillment comes from almost staying in a state of flow, right? That everything feels you're putting effort to things, but they feel effortless. You're not, and that reminds me of a book. Maybe you have read it, maybe you haven't. It's called Power versus Force. Sure, we have a limited amount of willpower, and a lot of things that we want to accomplish, most people use willpower. I need to push myself, I need to white knuckle my way through it, I need to just keep going. But if we find those things that we are naturally gifted at, whether it's piano, consulting, writing, podcasting, teaching, whatever, then it's all, we have this free energy because it's what we're meant to be doing, rather than here we go again. I need to do this and I need to
Yeah.
do that, rather than, oh, I get to do this, I enjoy it, I'm having fun. So that is one side when it comes to the feeling effortless, having this state of flow. When it comes to the emotions, and I understand that that is part of the human experience, feeling angry or sad or happy or scared, those are part of that. That's a physiological response. Why are they there? I have no idea, but what I do know is that our brains, which is our prefrontal cortex and our limbic brain, don't talk to each other. So when our emotional brain, which is our limbic brain, feels an emotion, our conscious mind, our rational mind is trying to make sense of why that is happening. That's when rumination comes in. That's when we think, oh, if I feel something that resembles to a stress, anger, sadness, or fear, I'm immediately thinking about an event that is causing me sadness, fear, anger, or stress. And what you're saying is, yes, if you're coming from a point of observer, if you take a step back, if you zoom out, you can sort of see, oh, this is just an emotion that needs to move through the body, and that's it. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
We give meaning to that. So that is obviously it's easier said than done, because we can be, once we are in the emotion, we are in survival mode, and our conscious mind gets almost like no blood flow, and it's almost like off. And we sort of need that rational mind to pull ourselves out and to observe the feeling, to observe the sensation, and work hard to sort of rewire or to stop our brain from going into rumination, to stop our brain from going unconscious and creating those loops that my life is over, I'm never gonna find love, I'm never gonna have money, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to sort of like see if I understood that side of it. But since we're talking about that, since we're talking about suffering, you have said that it's not necessarily our circumstances that create suffering, but the way we perceive them.
That's
What do
correct.
you mean? What do you mean by that in practical terms? And what can people do to reduce their level of suffering?
See, the way I interpret suffering is, or any negative emotion, is we had certain expectations to take place externally, whether it's earning money, whether it's somebody, how they treat you, whether it's your friend, whether it's your family, whether it's your partner. But they didn't behave the way you expected, and that either hurts you or disappoints you and makes you feel sad. Correct? And I think one of the biggest place we learn this is movies, right? We watch a movie and there is one character who expects something and it doesn't happen and it becomes sad, and our subconscious mind learns it. And movie we may start watching later on in life, but in early days, how many times the mom is upset on dad because he was supposed to come home 5:30 but he came 6:30, and mom's not happy because she had expectations. And we've seen people being disappointed with life, with events that taking place in life, and as a result we learn it. And that is where the suffering comes in. And sometimes things which are not in our control, we still want to control it, so we resist the things which are not in our control, and that actually gives us permanent suffering. What is in our control, I think what I learned through my experience is, if something is not in my control, I'm going to accept it and let it be whatever that is. If something is in my control, I would work towards it. If I know that if I walk 10 miles north, I'm going to reach the station, I'm just going to go. Now, if it's raining, there's no point. I never check my weather app, because by checking, I will know that it's going to rain, but I can do nothing about it. And what I have to do today, I have to do. So, what's the point of just being unhappy about the, oh my God, it's going to rain? And I tell people, why do you react, oh my God, it's going to rain? Where did you learn that rain is a wrong thing or bad thing? Like, I remember when I was in India, and if it's raining, we go out and play and get wet, and it was so much fun. When I came here, I saw a little girl, 4 or 5 years old, and she opened the door, and her mom was coming behind, uh, and she looked at outside, and she's like, "Oh my God, it's raining! It's awful." And I'm like, "How does she know raining is awful?" And then the mom came out, and she goes, "Oh my God, it's raining! It's awful!" And that gave me the answer how the child learned from. So we perceived how to react in situation, and if we learned it through the pain. Now rain, we can't do anything. All I do is carry umbrella 24/7. Even if it's summer, 35-degree, I have umbrella in my bag. So that's it. You don't have to give reaction to it. It's a situation. What you can do is carry an umbrella, or you choose not to go out. But why do I have to feel that resistance and tense about it? This is just, raining is just one example. How many
Yeah.
other things are there in life which are not in our control, but we really stress about it?
Okay.
That's where the suffering
I
is.
which I really appreciate that, because now I understand how the rain was a basic example, but also at the same time my understanding is that suffering is the gap between our expectations and reality.
Hmm.
And the larger that gap, the bigger the suffering.
Yes.
While at the same time, I think that we have expectations as a way of hope, right? In
Hmm.
terms of expectations equals hope. If we don't have it for sure, then, because if I have this pen, I don't need to have an expectation about this pen. I already have it. But if I want to have a pen, I'm hoping that one day I can have this pen. So, but if I never get it, well, I'll be sad because I had expectations. So basically, hope hurts. Whether you are a single person and really want to find a partner, or you're miserable at your job and want to find something that is more fulfilling or pays you more, or maybe you don't have friends, maybe you want to buy a better car. So part of that hope could drive you to change your life, to take action, to have more ownership, agency, while at the same time it's a tricky thing to do, because if you have too much hope, then when things don't happen, that's when suffering hits, right? Now,
Yeah.
I've said this for a long time, pain is inevitable. We're all going to experience pain to some capacity, whether it's physical or emotional, but the suffering part is optional. It's not is I can I can feel the pain, but if I think about the pain, that's when the suffering appears.
Hmm.
What happens to those people who maybe are not? they don't feel fulfilled right now, or they are single, or they're not making as much money that they would like, or they want to have more friends. They feel isolation. We are having a loneliness epidemic, and by desiring this, which is like a very human thing, once again, belonging, shelter, resources. Very, we're not even talking about, oh, I want the big house, I want the yacht, I want the Ferrari. We're talking about basic human needs. How can people still have the hope, still have the desire to get those, while reducing the suffering to a minimum when things don't happen in their timeline, or the timeline that they expect those to happen?
So I'm gonna give a little long answer to this. Sorry about that.
Oh,
Um,
you're good.
but I think, see, ultimately, we all want one thing, and there are 1 million definitions or ways of feeling that. It's been identified differently, right? And I'm going to talk about it overall on everything. What we are looking for is fulfillment, right? I liked your formula when you said expectations equals hope. I have slightly different formula. I say expectations equals disappointments, and
Hmm.
and I feel the relief is in acceptance. So if you accept it instead of expect it, then there is no pain because you didn't have any, you accepted not to expect, or you accepted whatever is out there. I mean, it's not an easy thing. I mean, you must have gone through so much of disappointments in order to conclude to accept, right? Because you, the hope is something. I mean, the hope is, it's I feel hope is more philosophical, like, don't give up. Hope means do not give up, it will happen, just continue doing things. But then it needs to be wise, like if you were farming and if you put seeds in a land which is properly fertile, then you're happy to wait until the crop grows. But you can't do that on stone, right? Otherwise, I mean, you have a hope, you have a determination, you're working hard, but you planted seeds on stones and not the soil. So what are you going to get? So that understanding is also quite important. um, I think the whole idea of having something to fulfill is where the beginning of a wrong journey starts, but I think it's very important as well. And I can give you an example. Let's say a 1 year old child, a father runs to the house and said, "Hey, son or a daughter, whoever that is, I won $1 million lottery." How is that child going to react? Doesn't know,
No.
right? If on the same day the grandfather passes away in front of that child, it doesn't know, it's not going to cry, it's not going to do anything because he hasn't learned how to react in that situation. But then what happens, he sees other family members crying and saying things like how they were attached emotionally. So the subconscious mind of the child learns to react. It's been programmed. Same way with the lottery. So this is a happy moment, this is a sad moment, and there's a, I think, in my experience, we learn a lot through indirect listening than direct instructions, because the direct instructions come to our conscious mind, whereas indirect learning goes straight into our subconscious mind, which is our emotional brain. And subconscious does not have time and space. So when the external reality changes, what it felt inside years ago is still there. I hypnotized someone on weight loss, and she was 48 years old, and she tried every single diet on this earth and nothing worked. I mean, nothing worked permanently. So when she's on diet, she would lose a couple of kilograms, but when she's off the diet, it's back to 48. And she was doing really good, work wise, family, kids, everything was perfect, but she just cannot lose weight. So when I hypnotized her, she went into her school time, when she was really slim and beautiful. But at that time, people were not really paying much attention on girls' education back then, where she grew up. And these boys were teasing her, which didn't belong to the school, but the outside, whenever she passes by from school to home. And she couldn't tell the parents because if she tells them, then they will make her stop going to the school, and she didn't want to do that. So she was just suffering inside, saying, why am I so beautiful? I wish I was fat. I wish I was fat. And the subconscious mind programmed that for her safety, it needs to put on weight. And that was a reason why she gained the weight in the first place. Now, when she had the realization, it's like a magic. So when you see an amazing magic trick, you're fascinated by it, you're thrilled by it. But the moment you learn how to do that magic trick, that thrill goes away because you know how it's been done. So it wasn't really magic, it was just a trick, right? So when you understand why she had extra weight on, that programming was undone. And then within 6 months, she started dropping significant weight without changing her lifestyle. Now, how many things we are carrying as our programming, and we perceive that as ourselves or our life or our reality, our dreams, which are not really ours. These are all learned desires. These are all learned fulfillment or ways to fulfill. This is all learning. It's not something we came with. So if I go back to the example of that child, the child is then conditioned over the years, and then he realizes that actually whatever I learned to express and I feel as pain or emotion, right, they were all learned. Then it would meet his true self, which is the observer, and it will make more sense. But unless the boy was conditioned, he will not realize what he was. So I'm not saying conditioning is the wrong thing, but it's the way of you searching for fulfillment everywhere and you cannot find it. And then you come home. You know how many spiritual teaching says what you're looking for is inside, right? But they never say where. They never say the shape. They never say how to really experience it. And I've done so many practices. If I start to name them, we'll run out of time. But I'll name the main ones, right? I've done inner engineering program with Sadhguru. I've done Kriya Yoga. I've done a course with Joe Dispenza, the formula course. I've done a psychedelic in South America. I've done law of attraction practices. I've done, anything on a YouTube. I've tried it, okay, in the last 10, 11 years. And I'm not saying nothing worked, but nothing worked how they said it is going to work. But they did something in me. And as a result, I had this realization. So I think they all have some sort of role in it. But with this, the sense of fulfillment is so constant that I cannot expect anything to happen externally now. I mean, I'm absolutely fine. Like, you name what happens if this happens in your life, and I'll say fine. I can say the worst thing: if I drop dead at this moment, I'll be in joy. So there is no fear. So this experience, and as I said earlier, no matter what I say about feeling of fulfillment, is going to really make that sense because they are just words. But it actually teaches you, and when you learn more about the quantum mechanics and how we see the reality, how what creates reality, what collapses the reality based on your nervous system and all sorts of things, um,
Mm.
you
Yeah.
really feel like what is that is being created and how intelligence is the system. Now I can say I am the drop of the ocean, or I can say I am the ocean. So then everyone is part of the ocean. But if I, unless one has experienced it, it is a philosophy, it is a theory, it is a technique, right? So what I've done in the book is I've simplified it. So anybody, even 10-year-old can read and understand what that means. It doesn't have, no one, the reader doesn't have to have any path. They don't need to be on a personal growth journey or anything. They can literally just understand. It's more like talking to yourself, and it will make you realize the whole conditioning and how it has taken form in our system and where we are. When I first realized that I'm the observer and everything I believed is me was conditioning and not my true self, I couldn't sleep for 2 hours. I couldn't breathe for 10 minutes because I'm like, if this is not me, then where am I? Where am I? And for good 2 weeks, I didn't meditate at all because I was so scared. But then I'm like, okay, what worse can happen? I can die. And I could have died in my tuberculosis, right? So let me just go for it. And when I went there again, I actually felt the bliss. I actually felt that this is exactly what I needed to find to understand what I am, to understand what I was chasing, why I was chasing, and everything. And 4 years ago, when I became hypnotherapist, that really kind of gave me the missing puzzle in my whole picture. So suffering, pain, it's still learned experience because we saw someone suffering or experiencing that pain and we learn to react in the same way.
So yeah, I mean, I can definitely um, see that, and I have quite a few thoughts. The first one that popped to mind is I heard once is the cliche phrase that everything is from within, but or everything is within. But the way that this person, which I don't remember who said it, says something. The essence we are looking from is what we're looking for. And it took
Yeah,
me a minute to like, okay, let me understand. Okay, let me the essence we're looking from is what we're looking for. It's like we are just chasing something that's always been inside of
yeah.
us. So it's also that is one thing that is always been in my mind since. But when you talk about this woman that was having issues losing weight, sure, as you said that there are a lot of beliefs that are unconscious that we overheard or we did something to survive because at the end of the day, especially as a kid, we are adaptives. We are going to adapt our behavior to secure the love of our caregivers, of our close ones. That's why if you, hypothetically speaking, you you come home with a, it's like you got the top grade, and your parents say, "Hey, Pratik, congratulations! We're so happy for you. I mean, we are so proud of you." Your mind could easily, without you knowing, create a story that love is conditional. The
Hmm.
love is conditional, and then you're going to become an overachiever, seeking that love because
Hmm.
that's how your brain read it. That is, I interviewed probably close to 2 years ago this therapist that after when we were talking off cameras after the interview, she mentioned how years ago she had a patient. It was this 15-year-old girl who wanted to transition into a man. She
Hmm.
was a tomboy. She was very kind of masculine the way that she would behave, and her parents
Hmm.
were kind of concerned because she wanted to take the hormone blockers, all of that. So she went through. This girl went to therapy, and after many sessions, they sort of realized or found out that probably when she was 5 or 6 years old, she overheard her dad talking to a friend of his saying that he always wanted to have a boy. She's only daughter, she's only child. But what she didn't hear is that her dad was super happy of having a daughter, but she always wanted to have a a boy. So her brain created a story that if for me to gain my dad's love, then I need to become a boy. If not, he won't love me, therefore I won't survive. Once they discovered that and they brought the whole family, it went through the entire process, she was able finally somehow, some way to change the narrative and to release the desire or the need to transition into a boy and stay a girl. And that one event created this chain of events that made her feel that she wanted to transition. Why do I
Yes.
bring this up? Because it's very similar to the one with this woman that wanted to lose weight. And
Hmm.
my question here is all of our behaviors are based, as you said, on conditioning that we are not even aware of. How do
Yes.
we even become, or how do we even start to become aware of these belief of these narratives of these even inner prisons if we cannot even notice them or see them? Once again, they're in the subconscious mind.
Yeah. So that is very simple because A, you need to have desire to find the answer. That's number one requirement. Okay. So if I feel that, do you know what, I get angry very easily and I don't like it. And I've tried consciously to not get angry, right? I write down that I'm calm and I'm peaceful and all sorts of things every single morning, every single night. But when something happens, I forget all of that and I just get angry. So I have this problem. And now I've learned or I've heard somewhere or read somewhere that it's a subconscious mind. How do I know how I learned? It's very simple. You just lie down on a couch or something and relax every single muscle of your body. That's like a semi hypnosis, right? So if your body is relaxed and you take a small breaths, sorry, deep breaths, slow breaths, and every time you exhale, just relax your body more and more. So maybe around 10, 15 breaths, you are completely relaxed it. And that time, your brain's frequency is at beta state. And the beta state is when you have access to your subconscious mind. And if you then genuinely be honest to yourself, okay, and be open to whatever comes, no judging there, because that's where you're going to find the true reason. And just talk to your subconscious mind with your closed eyes that I've been struggling with anger and I know it came from my childhood. Can you show me how I actually learned? I'm gonna count 5 to 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and that's in that event, whatever was happening, will pop up in front of you as in imagination. In that frequency, you need to remain the calm, you need to remain relaxed, and it will come to you. Then you ask, okay, show me another event that maybe made this learning a bit firmer or stronger, and then it will show you another event. So you can go up to five. But what will happen is when you see these five different events, which you perceive to get angry from, it's like now you're seeing the trick, how that magic was done. And as soon as you learn and realize it, that anger effect will go away. Because in most cases, I've hypnotized a number of people on anger. And there was one thing which was very common is that they learn to get angry as their coping mechanism to the event which was not pleasant to them. So this one little girl was in her coat, and her parents were arguing, and and she didn't like that. So what she did is she started shouting and screaming to make them quiet, and they became
Mm.
quiet because they couldn't see her scream at that age. And then every time they were fighting, she just did that. So if what she learned subconsciously is if there is anything unpleasant, you gotta shout out and you gotta angry, you gotta get angry. This is very common with every, like 80% people learned anger through that. And then they go to school, and if you haven't done homework, what the teachers do, they'll be angry, right? So they learn again. So if anything unpleasant, undesired, you get anger out.
Hmm. So it's interesting because then it reminds me how I was listening to this podcast a couple of years ago, and this person was basically saying or sharing that the behaviors that we have as adults that don't make any sense, they make sense at some point in our life, right? And his point was not to judge our current behavior. Imagine that that girl is in her 30s or 40s now, and every time there's an unpleasant emotion, she throws a temper tantrum. Then we
Hmm.
think, oh, clearly she's immature, she's this and she's that. But even herself might judge herself for that behavior, not understanding that that behavior had a purpose back in the day, and it
Yes.
just bringing that kind of kindness and self-compassion to really understand, okay, if I'm afraid, in my case, anger was interesting to me because I never felt safe
Hmm.
expressing anger growing up,
Yeah.
because either because my dad was, I love him to death, he loved all of us and all that, and we have a good relationship, but he has a very explosive character. He gets mad and then he just yells and starts kind of being the bully kind of thing, because that's how he grew up. So at home, I didn't feel safe expressing anger, because if I get angry, then he's gonna be even angrier. That's not safe
Yes.
for me,
Hmm.
even though I was never abused. But again, even in a psychological, emotional way, I'm not safe. And
Yeah.
in school, I was always the smallest kid because I was a year and a half ahead of my classmates. I was a year and a half younger. Younger. And if I express some sort of anger towards the bullying, well, they're bigger than me, so it's
Yeah.
not gonna work. But
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah.
it was always around fear, right?
Yes.
Even
Yes.
even now, fear of visibility, fear of really taking space. I've been working through those, fear of being seen, fear of just of not being enough. And I know there's some of those are in a subconscious mind, that something happened growing up that made me very fearful. And what happens is, and maybe you can extend on this, is that the moment that that happens, our nervous system will just, if it detects any kind of threats, even the threats used to be, as we know, the subconscious mind doesn't know any time. It could have
Yes.
happened 30 years ago, but to the nervous system, it's like it happened yesterday,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the nervous system will put as much resistance as possible for you to really go and get the life you want. In those cases where I know that fear from somewhere, but I still cannot able to pull it to the front and dissolve it, what is the way of not only making peace but working with your system so you can move forward more effortlessly?
Yeah. So it's a really good question. I'm really glad you shared your personal experience, and I can relate to that with some of my other clients who I've hypnotized. So, as a child, what we have been demonstrated is their attention. So, a child wants parents' attention, and if you have siblings, then you want to be your parents' favorite, right? Like every child wants that. And in my hypnotherapy study, yeah, we learned that there were four different roles a child would adapt. One of the four, or maybe more than one of the four, depending on how many siblings you have. So one is intelligence. So one of the child would be really smart in studies and will work really hard to get parents' attention and get the praises he wants to hear. The second role is carer, who will look after, clean the house and help with house chores, doing some house shopping, getting bread and milk and stuff like that. The third one is the sick, who's always sick, like, mom, my tummy hurts, or my head hurts, or feeling itchy, and things like that, to get parents' attention. And the fourth one is the rebellious, who will not listen to anybody and will just do what he wants, right? They are the ones who are a bit bully in school, right? Or wherever they go, they are the one who are always aggressive and trying to intimidate, because that's what they learn, to grab people's attention and having that importance. So when we feel that we are not receiving the praises or the amount of attention we want, we our brain automatically interprets that we are not enough, right? And when it grows, because it goes in the loop, like you're trying really hard but you're still not getting that, because there is one seed already there. So there could be something where, do you have siblings?
I do have two. So when you, I have you, I'm the oldest. So when you were describing the four, I was trying to identify myself and my siblings. So for my middle brother, I think he's definitely the rebellious one. My
Mm-hmm.
younger sister, who's just the youngest, she's probably into the sick one. My head hurts, I feel,
Yeah.
I'm tired, I'm this, I'm that. For me, though, I think was the caring. I've always felt like I'm the one who needs to care for everyone. And but also I will say that even though I never considered myself like smart, even though people would say, oh, you're brilliant, you're smart, you're this, you're that, I used to associate intelligence with getting good grades, and I was too lazy to get good grades. But if I put in some sort of effort, I would get good grades. But the reason why I'm bringing intelligence is because I don't know if it's just by choice or they're just messing with me, but it has become a belief of theirs, my younger brother and my younger sister, is like, oh, Daniel, you just stole the whole IQ. You're more, you're smarter than us. I'm like, that's not an excuse for you to not not put any
Yeah,
effort.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But I never felt like, oh, I'm gonna impress my parents by being the smartest and getting good grades. I never did, but I show cares. Like I would just take care of my siblings. I would just go to a grocery store. I would do things that I still do to this day, not to them, but to people in general.
yeah.
I'm a big giver.
Yeah, yeah, and I think we share that experience because I am also older in my, with my, I have one younger brother, and I think what happens is the first child gets praise for whatever he does, right? Because there is no comparison. It's the first child. So if you sang a song, they're like, oh my God, you're so smart, and then you automatically go towards the smartness or the intelligence because you are the first one doing all the new tricks in the family. And if you're the first child in your parents' siblings, then you actually get even more attention. But then what happens when you have a second sibling? So first sibling after you, they start getting the attention. So what you then do automatically is start taking care of things around to grab the attention. So you were intelligent before, and now you've also taken another role, which is the carer part. So when your sibling grows up, he can subconsciously see that, you know, the house thing is already done by my brother. He's already smart, and to compete, I have to do even more efforts. Why don't I just be sick, right? So they take the other role. So most generally, the in my experience, the people I've met and I've hypnotized, the older child is usually taking either the carer or the intelligent role
Or
because
both, I
that's
guess,
how, yeah, or both, yeah,
or
or
both.
both.
Yeah, I
And
guess.
it is quite relatable. But I think ultimately what we are learning unconsciously is that we need that love and attention, and that is for the safety as a child. But when we grow over 21 or over 25, we don't really need that. And I say this as an example, like, what if you feel that your parents didn't give you much attention? If they are 24/7 with you wherever you go, and they just every time you look at them they say, I love you, Daniel, how long can you tolerate them for? So if you wake up, they are sleeping next to you, right, and say, good morning, Daniel, here is your breakfast, Daniel, here is your bag, and they're gonna how long can you really tolerate them?
A
A
day or
day,
two is
a
like,
week. Yeah, yeah. So that's the thing. Like, you've grown up, but your subconscious hasn't experienced that. So it still operates from that lack. I wish I had my dad sitting with me and having fun instead of being angry. Now he was angry because of his conditioning, and whoever, it's a pattern coming through
yeah.
generations, right?
Mhm.
So we can't really blame him because he didn't choose to be angry, just how he became. So
Yeah.
you don't have the resistance, but the experience is still there. And you know, I think by you understanding why he's like that, and when you understand this now, that okay, I wanted at that time, but now I'm enough to look after myself, and I can't really have them 24/7 next to me. So you don't really need that anymore. So the moment you realize that, that lack disappears and you become more fulfilled by yourself. And that's what we do as a hypnotherapy, that whatever was lacking in a childhood, you are completely capable of taking care of yourself. You are independent. You need no one to make you feel fulfilled. And the more you practice, we give a recording which you listen for 30 days, and then you will see the shift. If you felt the shift, the first shift, at the session, which is like 2 to 3 hours long. But, and I had been doing that, but when I had this realization that even if I'm trying to manifest something with a positive mindset, even that is learned. So what is without learning? Because I know I have a positive mindset, I know I can think big, I've read the books to bring me positivity. But what I learned is that all the techniques I've been through, all the practices I did, was changing my learning. So there was one learning from childhood didn't serve me. So I was doing new learning that could possibly serve. But in both scenario, I was chasing something externally to fulfill me. So before I was chasing money, for example, with hard work and be ethical, and you have to give a lot in order to receive, right? You just give to people, to relationship, for love and everything. Although you didn't expect anything on a superficial level, but deep down you wanted something in return, whether it's love, whether it's attention, whether it's acknowledgement, right? Even when we give, if we help someone, we expect thank you from them, right? So, so there was some expectations. But when you learned about law of attraction and how you manifest the energy and vibration and all those rules, you stopped doing the hard work. You came out of the limiting mindset instead of the open and much bigger mindset, but you still are chasing externally. So you're still not fulfilled. So let's say I tried to manifest $1 million and I got it in a year. Does it fulfill me? No. I'm now going to manifest for 10 million. So before I was doing hard work, now I'm visualizing, but I'm still not feeling fulfilled. It might fulfill your desires, but it will not fulfill you with the wholeness, right? But when you see that the everything you experience, everything you believed to be yourself or the purpose of life was learned, because you need to study hard to get a good job and earn good money. It wasn't your decision, it was somebody told you, whether it's your parents or your family or teachers in school, they're all talking about the same thing, right? If you do business, there are a lot of challenges and you might lose everything. And those fears around having your own business came from the society or the people, but you overcame those. Somehow you managed with some positive thinking by reading positive books, and when you made little changes, it worked. Okay, and when it worked, you had more confidence into what you were doing, and you got with a positive mindset. But you're still chasing things externally. But when you operate from that wholeness, like, no, I didn't need money to be happy. All I really need at the moment is my body needs food and my brain needs sleep to survive. And I turned 40 last year, and I don't think there has been any day where I had to sleep starving, or I had all my meals on time, regardless of where I am, and I had a nice bed to sleep. So what anything else I would want is out of conditioning. And I'm not saying that everyone should stop earning money and just eat and sleep. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is whatever you do, the very act of participating in that activity should give you enough joy that there is nothing more you expect. The problem starts when you expect. When you expect, you try to control the outcome. When you try to control the outcome and it doesn't go your way, you are stressing about it because you're trying to control something which is not in your control. That stress tightens your body, tightens your muscle, making a fist instead of an open hand. So
Yeah,
when you,
yeah, no, no. I mean, I was just thinking that what you just said, how sure we can do things that fulfill us, we can do things that make us feel joy or even get into this flow state, and everything else seems to almost come as a byproduct of it because we're no longer gripping, right? We're just releasing, because once again, I'm not saying that we need to release control, because we cannot release something that we never had to begin with. We never
Mhm.
had control over anything. We only had control over our actions and how we react to things, because I don't think we can even control our thoughts, because we have like over, I don't know, 70,000 thoughts per day, and we're not consciously choosing, oh, I'm going to think about this.
Yeah,
So we
yeah,
can
yeah.
control which one we really pay attention to. And and I get it, and the ego gets in the way of, am I enough? How am I going to be perceived by, once again, judgment? How am I going to be perceived by Pratik? how I'm going to be perceived by my friends. What if I don't have a good car? What if I don't have a good income? Would they still like me for who I am, or do they like me for what I can provide in terms of a status, in terms of what, any other things? So I do believe that that's the way, and it takes time for us to really understand that and accept it, because well, as we said, we have been conditioned for many years to live a particular way. And even though we can understand philosophically what it means to really embody and feel it, okay, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to be okay, that's a leap that is hard to take. And we're running out of time, but I want to ask you one last question, because I think that is this conversation has been fascinating, and it's going to help a lot of people to truly see themselves differently, understand themselves differently. And I have to bring you back because I had a ton of other
Definitely,
questions.
definitely.
But what would be one simple shift that people can begin making today that could dramatically change how they experience their lives?
Certainly, I love that question, and I was actually going to mention that. Um, so, when you experience something, whether it's good or bad, you just need to spend 5 minutes, and it's not an exercise. Okay, you can do anytime. You can be sitting on a toilet seat, and you can do this exercise. Okay, um, that okay. If I felt that this is a good thing, why and at what point I thought this was a good thing. Is it something come from me or is it something I learned? And everything that is learned, you can just go deeper into it. Like, okay, my dad said, and okay, it dad said, so it's not yours. What do you think? What do you think? So if you keep asking those questions, you will actually uncover that everything we are, you know, we believe that this is I. Where is I? Who is this I? Right? Because the brain is a transmitter, receives the thoughts which are out in the space, right? And what decides the frequency? I'm just going to give one nice example, and it will sum up everything. We, in the room or in our house, when it's winter and it's freezing outside, we use a thermometer and see what temperature is the room, and it's like 18 degree and it's cold. Do you do anything to the thermometer to make it 24 or 22 degree? No. We go to the thermostat, we change the thermostat to 24 degree. Within 15 minutes, half an hour, it'll be 24. And you use the thermometer to measure what is the current temperature, and that will say 24 degree. So when we look at the reality, what is in front of us, the events, our eyes, our ears, our five senses are perceiving that. And those five senses, I call it a thermometer, which measures what is out there. It doesn't participate in creating, it is measuring what's out there. And our nervous system is a thermostat, right? So state of our nervous system, what it believes to be reality. And that's what the quantum mechanics says, right? The particles become, the wave becomes particles, collapses a reality from the probability field based on what the observer wants to see as a reality, right? And that is our nervous system state. Now, how the nervous system is being built. So our years of conditioning and our experiences and repetition, it's like the balance sheet. I'm an accountant, so I can say a balance sheet of the whole year's activity or whole life's activity, and what is the net effect of that. So think of this: you're making a curry and you put all the ingredients in, right? You put salt, you can put sugar and chili and turmeric and everything, and then the final taste of it, that's the state of nervous system, and that is what you're going to create as reality, right? So in order to change the nervous system, you can't visualize on a thermometer that is 24, 24, 24. It's not going to do it, right? That's what we do as law of attraction. We write things, we try and visualize, and we try and feel, but that's for half an hour, and then you've got 23 and a half hours to ruin it because the nervous system says something else. So once you understand that how you learn to believe something, how it was programmed, you're actually removing those little patterns, and that's called neuroplasticity, right? You can change your neurological patterns, your wiring. And once you start releasing, what will happen is you will start accepting things. You will stop resisting things. You will stop labeling the good and bad, the positive, negative. You will see things as events, and the emotional experiences, you will call it experiences without labeling that this is happy moment or this is sad moment. And what happens ultimately, if you keep doing this exercise, and that is why my 3 day program ensures that you experience what the life would be if you live from that state of observer, right? And the book is going to give enough, like, deep understanding. And I would say more than half, 50% people would just be able to transform their life by reading the book. The remaining, like me, who wants to go to the depth of it, the 3 day program is there, right? But at the moment, all they want to do is, okay, today, what made me happy? And was it conditioned, or is it a true happiness? Because if you didn't have the answer for yourself, it was definitely learned, right? Because somebody said this is how, or you saw someone being happy. Was it learned, or whether it's yourself? And what made you sad? And then ask yourself a question: was it learned emotion or experience, or whether it's the true experience? And as you start doing it, you will realize that there were so many things you've been carrying since you were growing up, and having, carrying this burden will be lifted. And the reaction to the events will change. So if somebody comes angry, and normally you used to get angry, but you won't be angry anymore. And that new change will also be, you know realized by the other person's nervous system, and his reactions towards you will also change over time. So as you interact with people, they will register new you, and they will react differently. So one thing to take today is understand this mechanism and see what is learned. And over the time, every single cell of your body will be a new nervous system, and it will create a new reality for you.
Beautiful. I love that. And yes, is something that nothing is neither positive nor negative. We're the ones who give meaning to events. Events are just neutral. And people might say, well, what if my grandma died? Well, if you want to put it from the negative lens, then a loved one passed away and you're not gonna see them again. From the positive one, well, they're probably in a better place and they're not suffering anymore. So any event
Exactly.
can be just
Exactly.
be both from those. And if we get the neutrality, we can bring more peace, less suffering into our
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. Yeah.
In particular, I love everything, and once again, I have to bring you back at some point because there are so many other questions in terms of conditioning, how we live a better life, how to understand ourselves better. But where can people find you, work with you, buy your book, anything?
So the book is available on Amazon right now. It's also it should be available on the retail outlets as well, but I think it's in progress. But Amazon definitely. But
What's
if they want to
the
know
name of
more
the
about,
book?
yeah, the book name is called Dhrasti.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't reach there. Just 1 second. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
So the book is called Dhrasti, the Perception by Pratiqk Jani.
Hmm.
And if one goes to the website, which is pratiqjani.com, um, and there is a link, and there's also some information about it. If they read the book, and if they say, if they feel that there is particular thing about their life and how they can apply the book, they can just drop me an email, and I'll be happy to respond to them. And yeah, all the information, they can sign up to Dhrasti Circle. I'm not going to send any junk mails. It's only important announcement about my events when I come to USA, Australia, or other countries to do the 3 day event. Only that, and only important stuff will be there, so they can
Awesome.
reach out to me. But
Perfect.
thank you
Well,
very much, Daniel. Really, really deep conversations. I really enjoyed it. And I really like when what I've discovered is, I wouldn't say challenged is the right word, but it has different exposure to apply on. So when you shared your personal experiences and journey, I think it was a really great opportunity for me to apply this method and what the book is about. And it kind of gives more assurance on that, yes, it is something anyone can read and apply and benefit from.
Yeah, absolutely. I always like to bring part of the personal experience so people can either connect the dots or think, you know what, I've been going through something like that, maybe it can work for me as well. So I try to make people understand mostly through life experience rather than, sure, we can know all the concepts, all the theory, and sometimes somebody might have a similar experience and okay, now I see it. So yeah, Pratik, once again, was a pleasure. Deep conversation. I love these kind of conversations. I can go for hours, honestly.
Likewise.
But yeah, I mean, all everything's gonna be on the description and show notes, all the links, everything, how people can contact you. And once again,
Excellent.
thank you for coming.
Excellent. I mean, the purpose for me be here is for people to know there is something there which can help. And thank you for, giving me the opportunity to share the discoveries I have made, or the universe allowed me to kind of, realize and reach out to people and share it with them. And I just want, as many people for my remaining life to live from the bliss and away from stress, anxiety. I want them to forget how to spell those emotions.
Great. Well, once again, thank you.
Thank you very much, Tanya.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Have a lovely day.